Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to your cryptocurrency show on this July 19th, 2019. It's a Friday. Thank God it's Friday. Listen, okay, let's get the charts opened right here and let's take a look first off at Bitcoin itself and see what it's doing tonight. This is what it's been doing this afternoon. It's priced at $10,563 right this second. And if we look at the last 6 hours, we can see it's starting to climb just a little bit over the last 6 hours. Let's focus in on 1 hour. Okay, 1 hour is not so good. 6 hours gives us a little bit better picture of what it's doing. It's up and down, jigging up and down, but it's slowly climbing again now this afternoon or this evening. And then we'll take a look at cryptocurrency market capitalizations. $286 billion. 65.7% Bitcoin dominance. I notice that Bitcoin dominance has been climbing and climbing. You know, this market, I mean, if you go back about a month or two ago, I was saying that this market's going to go along sideways. You know, and it's been going along pretty much sideways, and it's getting ready for its next leg up. You know, that's what it's doing. And we might see a little bit more downward pressure on it before it gets ready to go up its next leg. The only thing that can change all of this is if we get some sort of a black swan event in the financial system. That basically right now, it's like the financial system's like a car teetering on the edge of a cliff. You ever seen these movies? Sometimes where they have a car that runs out over the edge of a cliff, and the guy, he goes to the back seat and the car tips back onto the land again, and he tries to move up to the steering wheel, and it starts to tip over the edge of the cliff. That's what our economy's like. It's ready to collapse and fall over the cliff. Deutsche Bank could flip it over the cliff. Bad Chinese numbers could flip it over the cliff. If there's a hard Brexit, that could flip it over the cliff, you know. Or just none of those things happen. If the stock market just rolls over, which could very well happen because the stock market is oversold right now. There's a number of factors within the economy, and there's probably a lot of factors that you can't see. Things that that's the real meaning of a real black swan, is you don't see it coming. It blindsides you. Anyway, number of factors could come together. We're getting ready to go into a recession anyway, and this could affect the price of Bitcoin. So, but barring that, say that doesn't happen. Say we just drift along the way we're drifting along right now. If we drift along the way we're drifting along right now, I'm fully expecting Bitcoin to start to heat up and head towards 16,000 later on this year. How long will it stay in this price range right here and just kind of go along sideways? Or maybe go down a little bit before it gets ready to go up to 16,000. I don't know. But here's something I want to warn you guys about. Gold and silver. Much more stability. They're much more less vulnerable to things like anything can come along to Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies. Very dangerous. Now you can make tremendous gains and profits off of cryptocurrency, but it's also very dangerous. It's a very dangerous asset because it can go down just as quick. So anything could happen. I mean, the government could come down on Tether real hard, you know, and could cause a market crash in Bitcoin. A number of factors could happen. Bitcoin, I mean, it's not likely to happen, but there's things like 51% attack. You know? And if you guys have never heard about that before, it's a vulnerability in Bitcoin that they can't fix it. If somebody gets control over 51% of the miners on the mining network, they can actually quite literally shut Bitcoin down if they can get 51% of the mining power. This has been a danger all along. Called a 51% attack. Now, some of these coins here are not vulnerable to 51% attacks, but Bitcoin is. I believe what would happen is they'd end up forking it, and this could extremely adversely affect the price. So, I mean, there's factors about Bitcoin that make it a very dangerous commodity, but the profit making on the other side can be huge, compared to gold and silver, which kind of seem to just kind of go along in a similar price range week after week, month after month. And this is because of price suppression. But there's not that much downside. There is some downside risk to gold and silver, but not like Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. Anyway, let's take a look now at this story. The G7. This is the power of the G7 countries. They're urging tight regulations for digital currencies. And they've agreed to tax digital giants locally. This is from Reuters, this story. Digital currencies such as Facebook's planned Libra raise serious concerns and must be regulated, they say, as tightly as possible to ensure they do not upset the world's financial system, the group of 7 finance ministers and central bankers said on Thursday. Finance Minister Bruno Le Maire of France, which holds the rotating presidency of the G7 top world economies, told news conference that the group opposed the idea that companies could have the same privileges as nations in creating a means of payment without the control and obligations that go with it. Really, what he's emphasizing here is the word control. They have the control, and they don't want to let that control go. They're not really so worried about Facebook coin. They just don't want to give away their power. This is what it really amounts to. And I said this, it's the power of the treasury. It always belonged to the king. Now that power's went over to the governments, and they don't want to share it. That's their turf. They don't want somebody horning in on their turf, and they're going to control it if somebody tries to horn in on their turf. Meanwhile, they're probably not going to give permission to these Facebook coins and these type of coins that are going to be released by, and I said this before. It's coming out in these other news articles. I already said this. I beat them all to the punch on my show. I said that the power of the treasury is not going to be given away lightly. I said that it's nothing more, nothing less than a coup by commercial interests and corporations to take control of the treasury away from the government. And I said that I didn't know if it would fly. Well, it hasn't. It's not flying. They want this control. It says here, it says, without the control and obligations that go with it. They don't care about the obligations. There's corruption all through their obligations. They've been not performing their obligations properly to begin with. But it's all about the control. They want that control. It says, we cannot accept private companies issuing their own currencies without democratic control. They always go back to democracy. There is no democracy without democratic control. That's a bunch of baloney. They just want to keep that control for themselves because they have the ability to make money and they're not going to give that away. That's basically what it amounts to. But take a look at the cryptocurrencies. The cryptocurrencies, these dense, decentralized cryptocurrencies, are the exact same threat. They're the exact same threat to take the control away. Now, what are you governments going to do about it? They don't need permission. They're already there. They license themselves. They don't need permission. They're taking it. They're taking the power of the treasury, but in a decentralized application that you can't stop it. There's no way to stop it. What are you going to do? The only way to really stop it would be to stop the world's internet. Can't do that. The world now will go to pieces if you try to stop the internet. And every computer, just one computer, can carry the whole Bitcoin node. This computer I'm working on right now has ample space to carry an entire Bitcoin node. What are you going to do? Destroy every computer that has Bitcoin downloaded on it? I mean, it would be impossible. It would be impossible if you made a law like that. It would be almost impossible to follow through and actually enforce that law. Be almost impossible. And so they don't need permission. They're taking this power of the treasury, Bitcoin, the cryptocurrencies, and they're doing a better job than Libra could ever do. Because Libra would have been pegged to the dollar, and the dollar's going to collapse anyway. And these decentralized cryptocurrencies are in a world of their own, and that world is going up in value. That is called deflation. These are deflationary assets. It means there's less of them all the time instead of more. Instead of inflating, they're deflating. In other words, they're becoming less and less Bitcoins all the time. Little pieces of Bitcoin get lost every day. People have like 0.0001 in an old wallet. They forget about it. It's on a computer. The computer gets thrown in the garbage. Happens all the time. It's nibbling away at the total amount of Bitcoins. It's constantly nibbling away at it. Whereas, let's take a look at the dollar on the other side of this coin. What's happening with the dollar? Well, the dollar, they're just creating more and more and more of them all the time. They, from what I understand, Catherine Austin Fitts did some homework into this, and she found that they've created 21 trillion new dollars out there that have already been created, but they haven't made their way into the system yet. Can you imagine what that's going to do to the dollar when that money finally starts to make filter its way down into the system? What about the dollar is being eroded from its peg to oil? And it's not being used, the SWIFT system's not being used, it's being bypassed. The Chinese have are now selling oil futures, not denominated in US dollars. The dollar is the de facto world reserve currency, and it's like, you can compare it to like Bitcoin. What happens if you crush Bitcoin? If you crushed Bitcoin, all of the altcoins, what happens to them? They'd all go down in value drastically along with Bitcoin. Well, the dollar's the same way. It is just like Bitcoin, except when you compare it to fiat currencies. All the other fiat currencies are pegged to the dollar. When the dollar moves, it affects all the other fiat currencies. So if the dollar is destroyed and it's taken down, it's going to take all the other fiat currencies down with it, just like if Bitcoin was destroyed, all of the altcoins would go down as well, you know. So this is what's going on here with this. And they're not going to allow these currencies to be released by corporations that enable them to go into global payments and e-commerce. It's just worrying the government. It says governments are starting to worry that big tech companies are encroaching on the areas that belong to governments. That's what it says right there. And so this is what's happening. They're not going to allow it on this side of the fence. They're not going to allow this to happen. But just on the other side of the fence, Bitcoin and the cryptocurrencies are doing exactly what, and they're doing it in a deflationary way rather than an inflationary way. Thank you guys for listening to this report, and we'll catch you again very, very soon. Bye-bye and good night.